Go.
What I said in general and what I think in general is that I do readings for people, or why you might want to access the records, is to access information about past lives that might impact you today, familial connections of information or ancestral lines that might impact you and how you are in this lifetime, and some challenges that you may experience associated with that. To get guidance for the life that you are living at this moment today, such as, it's interesting, I get a lot of people, it's no accident I'm called the biz psychic, because 95% of my clients are business professionals or women entrepreneurs, and come to me a lot about what's happening in this job, where should I go, how should I move forward, and so that's one way, and that's my focus. Leah was mentioning, right? That she wanted to use this for work with animals. So there's all kinds of ways you can do it, and that's addressed in the book and in the training. We talk about how to access the records of yourself to get guidance, wisdom, clarity, and insight about current challenges, past patterns that seem to dog you no matter what work you do, and how you can resolve them. Now, the beauty of working in the records is that literally just opening the records creates an environment, a bubble of healing. And so what we're actually going to do tonight is that we're going to open your records, and in whatever form or fashion it is, we go into much more detail in the training because there is a specific way to do it. And I'm going to tell you that the hardest part of this training is getting the prayer right. It without fail happens in every training. And so I open them because I give readings. If you never gave a reading to somebody else but wanted to do this work for you and gain insight about patterns that you've done all this work and they still keep coming back. Why is my family like this? Why did I choose my family? In fact, we do an exercise for that in our advanced training. Well, not why I chose my family, but why I chose this lifetime. It's kind of unlimited. You can take anything that you want into the Akashic records and ask about it. Now, it may or may not be your purpose in this lifetime to come up with and create world peace. If only, right?
I like that.
And so, while you may even get information about how to achieve world peace, executing on it is something else, right? Because I think we're all kind of in, yes?
What is the difference between talking to your guide or someone else's guide
Fabulous
and
question.
the Akashic records?
Great question, Gail. Thank you for asking that. I would say the big difference, one of the big differences between opening and working in the Akashic records is that if I open your records, I'm using your guides. And what Linda has been able to download or discover and convey is that they are called masters, teachers, and loved ones. So I am speaking to your masters, teachers, and loved ones. I say the prayer, I dial up Gail's peeps, and
911?
say,
Yeah.
you could have a whole bunch, and say, oh, Gail wants to know about what's happening with her father and her job. Maybe not simultaneously. And we talk about that. And they will give me guidance. Some of it is clearly defined, and I can just spit out whatever they're telling me. And some of it needs a little bit more questioning or conversation. So the main difference is that I'm going into the Akashic Records, which holds all information of each and every person's soul that ever was, is now, and ever will be. There, as you know, is no beginning, no middle, and no end. There just is, right? And I'm using your guides rather than mine.
Seems the most direct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in my own personal experience, and I have inimitable, I don't know if that's the word I want to use, but I have the utmost respect for all people who do this work, whether it's through the records or their own psychic guides. I don't think that anybody is wrong, and I never make anybody wrong. Information is information, and it's what you take from it and do with it.
So to piggyback a little bit off of Gail's question and your response here. So if you're reading for somebody else, you're tapping into the records and you're talking to their guides. If they want to work for themselves, they can work with their own guides, and their guides can tap into the records, obviously. I mean, they're, right? I mean, would it be the same kind of thing? Or?
So I'm using the word guides as a generic term.
So you would want to bring up your own masters, loved ones, and...
Yes. When you open the records, the prayer, and we'll get to this shortly, the prayer really addresses masters, teachers, and loved ones. Not to be confused with your spirit guides or angelic guides.
Gotcha.
Okay? If you get the book, you can see how she has downloaded this hierarchy and how she sets it out.
Mm-hmm.
And the Akashic records are actually governed and protected by the lords of the Akashic records. They're the ones, they've never been in human form. They don't communicate directly with us. They communicate with the masters, teachers, and loved ones in deciding what information needs to come through for the benefit of that person at that time. It has been my experience that just in feedback I've gotten from clients, that it seems to be a more accurate representation. That all being said, I remember many years ago bringing my daughter for a reading with Dottie, and Dottie was the only one who could identify what was wrong with my daughter. So I believe there's value in all pathways, depending upon what works for you. Okay? Did I answer everybody's question? I know you have more. And that's good. That's a good thing. Did I answer your question about what they're used for? Do you feel like you got that information?
Is that what Dottie does when she does a reading, accesses our Akashic records? Or does every psychic use Akashic records, or maybe they don't know?
No,
what-
Dottie
how they-
goes to the.
Dottie has a
the
spirit
guide.
guide that she
Yeah.
uses.
Yeah.
It's different. I never say one is better than another. I will never make that judgment about another intuitive. I just won't. I think there's value in everything. I will tell you that and any number of times I've had other people get readings from me and say, wow, you're the only one that's ever told me that. And then that was correct information for them. I just think that there's a clearer, for me, and I speak only for myself, there's a clearer understanding and pathway when I access the records. Remember, I just had random information, so Dottie has Ma that helps her to make sense of that information. That's what works for her. So to the best of my knowledge, she does not access the records, but she might tell you something different. Maybe Ma accesses the records. There's lots of ways in.
She's never mentioned that Ma, she says Ma speaks to their guides,
See?
to their higher consciousness.
There you go.
And that's a little bit different.
So I think there's no wrong way it's whatever works best for you. And remember, I felt like, oh, I found this process that is an on and off switch for me and focuses the information for me. I just didn't have, and it wasn't that for lack of trying. I had taken a lot of classes trying to figure out what to do with the information I was getting, and just, this is what worked for me. Like any practice, it is a practice. It takes time and dedication and repetition to understand what's coming in and how to use it in a way that makes sense, not just for you, but if you're reading for others, for the people that you're reading for. I have all the clairs. I'm clairvoyant, I'm claircognizant, I'm clairaudient, I'm clair whatever, sentient.
Sentient.
And so
Kinesthetic.
it's like a movie for me. I hear it, I see it, I feel it, I know it. Most people don't get that, but it doesn't really matter. However you get it, as long as you can get it and do something with it, is what matters for you. So the prayer itself, it's funny. When I took my teacher's training, and all the trainings I took with Linda, we would go around the room and people would talk about why they were there and what brought them. And I would say 90% of the class would classify themselves as recovering Catholics. And Linda was also in that category. And so it is not a coincidence, I think, that when you look at the prayer, and I will pass out a copy of the prayer, that it has religious overtones. It is not religious in and of itself. I don't use it that way. I never have, because remember, I was an atheist. And I say was. And there's some language in there when I first started using it that I felt really uncomfortable with. I just was like, does that have to come out of my mouth? And then I just realized that it's not really about the language itself, it's about the intention and the vibration.
There.
That all being said, when I teach this, you will learn the prayer. What you do after you leave my training, I cannot control, nor would I attempt to. I do want you to have the best success with it, and that's why I teach you what I teach you, and I give you the benefit of all my best practices. And there's a lot of them when you're giving readings for others. And as I said, some people will never want to do that. We do it in class because it helps you to discern what it feels like to hear about somebody else and hear about yourself. And every reading is completely different because every human is completely different. It's just the most fun ever for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only thing as fun as giving a reading is teaching it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so would everybody like to learn a little bit about the prayer and how you might access this?
Sure.
Sure. You want me to hand that up for you?
That would be so wonderful. Thank you. Yeah.
These guys here?
Yeah, that and there's, I don't know how many are here and how many are there. Probably not, I don't know if there's
And
any.
all like 10
I think that there's only 10 of the, there's more prayers, I think, but I think there's only 10 of the, it's fine, we'll talk about that later.
I want it back up. You don't want it.
You know what? I just realized you are not getting the prayer.
What?
Yeah, some of you might get, can I see those? Because I copied something double-sided and then I realized that you are not getting the prayer. How
Can
about
we make
that?
more copies of this?
Wow.
Commission it for me?
You cannot, this is not gonna help you in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Well,
Kind of typical.
you're
I mean, you
awesome.
can have it, it's just Linda's guidelines. But, Can I add, I'm gonna ad lib while Corky is
Well,
so
maybe she
kind to
can-
make a copy of the
Yeah,
prayer.
make a copy of the prayer.
Let me find the condensed version for you, which is, I can't believe, I was like so on it. And I'm like, let's see if that's the one I wanna use. They're in here a few times. Okay. I will tell you that I bought the book, I've read the book, I can't even tell you how many times I've read the book. And experiential training is really important for this work. Well, how fun was that? All right. If you can copy that page, I would be eternally grateful. Ah,
Careful.
kick that thing.
Kick it out.
That, well, how interesting. I thought I was right on top of that. And I was, it was just the wrong page. So I'll talk a little bit about the prayer while Corky is copying it. When I first started doing this work, and I said to you, I opened this up, and I hadn't even really read the prayer yet. I opened up the book and I just started reading kind of her acknowledgement, her preface, and I was just like, oh my God, this is it. This is where I go. This is where I've been. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I've never felt that way about any other kind of training or work. It just resonated so deeply. It was immediate for me. It was a gut reaction. And taking the training for me was a formality. It validated everything I already knew and gave me the experience of reading for others as well as opening my own records. And there's quite a bit to learn in these trainings. In the beginning training, we learn how to access the records the way that Linda talks about it, the way she sets it forth. And then we do a lot of practice around that, and then I talk about what you can do with the records. You can open up the records on the US government. Well, I wouldn't say files of the US government. I would say whatever is a public record, you can open. You can open for anybody who gives you permission that is over 18. You can read crystals. You can open the records of crystals. You can open the records of pets, and you can open the records of, I've opened the records for somebody at work who went to work every day and felt like she was just in the most horrible place ever. And I found out that the place where she was working was in, I want to say the 20s, because they showed me outfits that had 20s appearance. It was I don't know, like not a house of ill repute, but it was stuff that went on in the 20s that was like, like a speakeasy type place, and yeah, it was really interesting, and it didn't vibe with her. It was rubbing her the wrong way, and it didn't impact anybody else that way. And the reason it impacted her that way, that was the way of them letting her know, her guides, her master's teachers and loved ones, letting her know that it was time for her to move on from that job. And so it comes in interesting and mysterious ways. Oddly enough, I've never opened the records for my own house. I don't feel called to do that. It's my space, I've made it my space, and I don't care what happened before. Means nothing to me. But you could. You could open the records for anything that's public or like is in an MLS listing for sale, so that you knew if you were going to move somewhere where that was what maybe was going on there. or had gone on there. So there are lots of ways to use the records. Gail, tell me again what you,
I wanted to learn about the structure of and the process.
okay. So in brief, the structure is that we say a prayer and we dial, I always say we dial up the masters, teachers, and loved ones. And then I basically am on the phone with them. I'm just having a conversation. I will tell you that the best reading is the one that somebody comes and has questions for. The more specific a question, the more specific an answer. And I don't feel bad turning somebody away who says, yeah, I kind of just want to know what the year has in store for me. And I'll say, wow, I totally understand that, and let me give you a referral to an astrologer or a numerologist. Because that's not the best use of my skills or the work in the records. It's really very specific. The more specific a question you can bring, the more specific an answer you'll get. And that's kind of, I think, more helpful, you know? I mean, maybe if I had asked what was in store for me this year. I don't know, I think there needs to be some mystery in life. We don't need to know everything. You do and can benefit from having some clarity and guidance as to how to deal with certain situations. Okay. The beginning class is just that. It really focuses on how to open the records, how to discern what it feels like to be in the records versus ordinary consciousness. There's a shift. That being said, you're not a channel other than, well, you're not an unconscious channel. I think we're always channeling. I mean, whether it's from there or from my stomach or wherever it comes from, I think we're always channeling and focusing, excuse me, that information. However, the difference between doing this work and being a channel or a medium is that it is intentional, deliberate, and purposeful. Okay?
So this is what you're talking about when you say getting the prayer right is to make sure your intention is set correctly, and then it will open smoothly for you.
Correct.
It can be open sesame, it can be whatever, as long as the intention is set.
Yes. You know, honestly, Gail, I've been doing this, I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of readings, and I've been doing it for so long. Oh my God, bless your heart.
Yay.
That I probably, in my own records, I could probably just say, I'm opening my records. And I would, because I always feel like I'm in my records.
Right.
I always feel like I'm in my records. I don't think that the random information was really, in some ways, that random. It was just that I didn't have the questions to go with it. So, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you again.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Okay.
All right. So, what I would like for us to do is, we're just gonna open it together. It's not gonna be perfect, and it's not gonna be how we would do it in class. I'm gonna tell you that, okay? Because it just needs instruction, and this just isn't the time or place. But we can walk through this, and again, having your intention kind of says everything to me. So I don't think it, I would say don't look at the left side for the moment.
Hold it.
It'll just confuse you. or maybe it'll confuse me.
It was just easier to do it that way. Gotcha.
So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to just briefly demonstrate what it's like when we open the records. We say it's just easier for me to demonstrate it, and
Yeah.
then we'll do it together, okay?
Okay.
And so we do acknowledge the forces of light, asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth as it is revealed for our highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to us. O Holy Spirit of God, protect me from all forms of self-centeredness and direct my attention to the work at hand. Help me to know myself in the light of the Akashic Records, to see myself through the eyes of the Lords of the Records, and enable me to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of me have for me. And then I'll go back and I'll say, help me to know Julianne Hawkins in the light of the Akashic Records, to see Julianne Hawkins through the eyes of the Lords of the Records, and enable me to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of Julianne Hawkins have for her. And then I'll say that again. There's a time and a place where we say certain things quietly, silently to ourselves. It's just too much to do right now, so suffice to say that we work through that in the class. And then we say the records are now open. And we're gonna do that, and I want you to just sit in it for a few minutes and notice what you notice. Notice if there's a shift in energy, if there's a shift in consciousness, if there's an awareness of, oh, where am I? Where did I go? Who's there with me? Is it different than who I've had with me in the past? The master, when you open the Akashic Records, as Linda Howe instructs, they become a persona. You will not get names. You will not get how they're related to you, if they're related to you. They are a collective. And that's intentional. They're meant to be that way so that you don't get hung up on who's there and who isn't there. Okay? I'm probably just used to it now. I never really think about it. It's just a collective for me. And I like it that way. It's good. Let's see. You use only your full legal name as it appears on your driver's license or passport. And people will say, well, what about my birth name? What I can tell you is, unless your birth name is your legal name now, then it doesn't matter. I don't know if you've changed your name. Women sometimes change their name when they get married, right? My legal name is different than my birth name.
Mhm.
So you use your legal name as it appears on your driver's license, or passport, or taxes, or anything that's legal. All right? I don't want you to get too hung up on the do's and don'ts of this now, because again, that's a class, okay?
Mhm.
This is just an introduction. And I do really want to stress, I just want you to notice what you notice, and then we'll just come back and see what that was like. So we're gonna read it out loud together. So just kind of play along with me, inserting your name as appropriate, so we'll hear that.
So we insert our name the second time?
So the first time we say 1 through 4, we are using, we just need to do it. Let's just do it.
Okay,
Okay? I get too hung up in the weeds and then I'm pulling weeds.
okay. And
So just go with me, I'll coach you as we go through it. All right?
Okay.
And
And
so we do acknowledge the forces of light, asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth, as it is revealed for our highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to us. O Holy Spirit of God, protect me from all forms of self-centeredness and direct my attention to the work at hand. Help me to know myself in the light of the Akashic Records, to see myself through the eyes of the Lords of the Records, and enable me to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of me have for me. Now we'll go back and we're going to read this part out loud again, inserting your full legal name. So it sounds like this. Carry with me. Help me to know, and insert your name. Help me to know Julie Ann Hawkins in the light of the Akashic records. To see Julie Ann Hawkins through the eyes of the Lord's records, and enable me to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of Julie Ann Hawkins have for her, or him, as the case may be. And one more time, exactly like that. Help me to know Julie Ann Hawkins in the light of the Akashic records. To see Julie Ann Hawkins through the eyes of the Lord's records, and enable me to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of Julie Ann Hawkins have for her. And now say the records are now.
The records are now.
And now let's just be quiet and see what you notice. Pay attention when you feel, see, hear, sense, know, if anything. And just be with that for a little bit. Just be quiet, or it may be some validation, or it may be full-on information. Whatever it is, just let it come, or be. We'll take just another minute to just sort of sense the landscape. What do you notice that's different? What do you notice that's the same? So this is just to dip your toes in the water or in the stream. When you come back in just a moment, you'll see at the bottom of the page it says closing prayer. So come on back and open up your eyes, because we are going to say this closing prayer exactly as it appears. You can make a mental note of whatever you got. We're going to actually go around the room and talk about it. We close that which we open. Remember that on-off switch. I would like to thank the masters, teachers, and loved ones for their love and compassion. I would like to thank the lords of the Akashic records for their point of view. And I would like to thank the Holy Spirit of life for all knowledge and healing. The records are now closed. Amen.
The records are now closed. Amen.
The
The records are now closed. Amen.
So who, if anybody, would like to share what, if anything, they got or experienced or noticed?
Mine looked like the cupboard in Narnia. It was, the closet.
Wow.
It's like, no, okay, whatever.
So
Doesn't have to be a literal
did
cupboard
you-
of.
Did you open the cupboard? Is that what happened?
Oh,
You felt
sure.
like you opened the cupboard?
Oh, sure, yeah. And it had all kinds of, like you see in the movies, have you ever been in a place where they did maps or where they did blueprints and stuff, and they have all those big drawers that are about that deep. And so it was like all the way to the ceiling. Those.
So you were really in the records,
Yep.
or the proverbial records,
Yeah.
the literal records.
Yeah, I've always seen it as like from floor to ceiling bookshelves and the guy running down and pulling out the book like this big and say, let me see, what are we supposed to be doing now?
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so this was kind of a miniature of that.
Well,
and only one aisle away.
Because
Usually
it
it's
was
like,
just you, right? It's for you, it wasn't
yeah,
for everybody.
you don't
That's
need
why it was
more.
this small
I mean,
cupboard.
right, okay.
I look at it this way, and I love your metaphor, and maybe it's literal. When somebody wants me to open up their records, I think of the records as a book, right?
Mhm.
When I open up your records for a reading, I might open it up to this page and speak only to the first sentence. It is that vast. We'll never get through the book.
Right. Kind of
Never.
like the
Not
Course
supposed
in
to.
Miracles. Never got through the whole book.
Can I tell you, this, I asked a specific question for a specific date for a question that we have going, and I got it. But in the process, behind me, somebody goes hurrying back down that way so fast I opened my eyes because it was physical.
Wow.
This person that's hurrying around, I picked it up from her.
Oh, the
Yes, exactly, just went that way, right behind me.
So you were in your Hall of Records.
Yes.
How fun.
And whoever it was that's doing the retrieving was running around. Must have been the same one you have.
yeah.
It isn't that way.
I'm cracking up.
I'm sure yours was your own guide
Yeah, I'm
doing
sure.
that retrieval for you, your own usher. I don't even get that. I just get streaming stuff. But I've had people open my records where they're like, yes, we're retrieving this book and we're going to this page, and I'm like, wow, how cool.
I just asked
Wow.
questions and get answers.
Yeah.
Seems a lot more efficient. They'd have to.
Checking out that library book now.
Yep.
Cool,
But
nice.
that was it was so real. Somebody went hurrying behind me. I opened my eyes and looked.
Wow, that's intense. That's pretty cool. That is awesome.
Thank you.
Maybe we shouldn't sit so
Weird.
close together.
Eh?
Right.
And so who else wants to share if they, and you may not have gotten anything. It is not unusual. So that is actually the norm. I want you to know that. It's the norm to really not get anything. Yeah, the norm.
We're abnormal
I
again.
want you to know that, okay?
Of course
Hear
not.
that. It is the norm.
We're abnormal.
Mine was a
No,
visual.
you're just special. Yes.
Mine was all visual. It wasn't picking out a record. It was completely white all around me, and I was just open to whatever. It was kind of specific as to next thing on the timeline, and they directed me to look up, and there was a hole in the ceiling, but it was all white, like looking through the next floor up, and a white-robed person comes walking by carrying a teal Celtic knot, and dropped a drop through the knot and landed in my eye.
Only to Gail. No. That's fabulous.
So I was like,
That is fabulous.
And how are your eyes doing?
So
That's
hang
what
on
it's
one
about.
second,
Yeah,
I just
sure.
wanna say this. When we do this, and this is why the class is so important, because you get to do this over and over and over again until you start to sense, oh, there's a little bit of a shift. Oh, I kind of sense this, or I feel this. The more you do it, the more you're gonna notice, oh, that was a little bit different for me. Okay? It is just, it's normal. It's normal for you. You're walking into a new restaurant. You don't know what you're gonna find, if anything.
But what I find interesting in the telling of it is that it was quick paced. The person was quick paced. He had quick pace behind him, she had quick pace going on, and this being quickly, never looked at me, delivered the information, and just kept walking because my sense was there's questions all the time and they're moving all the time. Okay, it's a little like Hogwarts in a way, because it was all
Exactly,
white.
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
It's kind of weird, yeah.
yeah. So everybody has,
Bless you.
thank you. Everybody has teachers that are assigned to them for specific lessons. When that lesson is learned, your teacher will move on. Everybody has a master, but a master can have many, you only have one master, but a master may have many,
Minions.
Minions.
yes, minions. Just fill in the blank, right?
We can help you with that.
And then the loved ones can be anything from a grandparent to a third grade teacher. I mean, we just never know. You may have an experience, and you may have a different experience every single time depending upon what you take in to the records. What you need to know is that just sitting in the records is healing. Remember I talked about how this is it's a healing in and of itself. When you are obviously in the presence and connected to divine representation, that in and of itself is going to be a healing experience for you. When I open my records every night, I got that healing every single night. Still, there are days I will do that periodically because I need that. Where there's nothing, and the funny thing is I actually had a reading from Linda years back, and I said, Linda, I open up my records and I don't get anything. Okay? She goes, oh, well, yeah, that's because you need to be in a place of peace, quiet, and rejuvenation. I'm like, oh, hell yeah, that makes sense. Right? I'm not saying that that's what you need, but it's not surprising that you don't get anything right at this moment, okay? So not only is it a practice, it's a relationship that needs to be cultivated, talked about. You're in relationship now.
Don't you think that when you're in that state of complete relaxation, it allows you to be quiet to get the message? It shuts out all the noise and you just are there, like suspended in the womb, so to speak.
I think generally speaking, that is absolutely correct, and I didn't forget about you, we're gonna come back to you. For me, and I can only speak for myself, because I'm getting information all the time, it's like, please let me go someplace that's quiet. Where I don't need information, I don't want information, I don't need to have it. And that's
And that's what
often
the
it is
prayer
for
does,
me.
doesn't it? It helps facilitate that atmosphere.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It will be different for everybody, and it may evolve over time. And I want to speak to that in a minute, but I want to come back to you.
So I don't know what I got per se, but I've been freezing all night long and I got warm. I
Yeah,
got very warm, and I mean, not hot, like uncomfortable warm, but I felt warm and blanketed. And at one point, I opened my eyes and I could see the energies moving around the room. It's like colors were shifting and things of that sort. So didn't necessarily get any answers to any questions or anything, but felt that I definitely was in some way somewhere else. And as soon as you brought us back, I got cold again. So I know, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I got very warm and very wrapped.
Fabulous.
yeah, I felt very warm too.
Yeah.
Who else wants to? Anybody? Anyone? Any Bueller? No, sorry. Did you talk to any pets? Okay. Any other sharings any other notices? Okay. Was
Yeah,
that-
I'd like to share it.
Yes, please.
Like a person's face, kind of, like someone I didn't know.
Someone you didn't know. Interesting. And how did that feel for you?
Like, hello, or just like peaceful person.
Comfortable?
Yeah.
Thank God. Okay.
Yeah,
That's another thing, and we go deep into this in the training. There is no way when you do this correctly that you will ever bring in anything dark. Ever. Just
What
one-
happens if you don't do it correctly?
I think there's a whole list of things that might happen. What I can attest to is the way it's taught and the way I teach it. Once you get that in your body, I really feel like, I mean, sometimes I'm just like, I'm in the records. I just acknowledge that. I don't have to just, although just out of habit for so many years of doing this, I automatically open the prayer. I do the opening prayer. Because it is a structure, and I like that structure. It keeps the good stuff in and the icky stuff out.
Oh, you can't beat
And I think
that.
that's a good thing.
Yes, that is a good thing.
It was a little ways, so here's my experience of doing this. When I first started doing it, I would get different facets of the persona. They would sometimes be funny, then they would switch to giving me metaphors, then they would give me symbolism, then they would, and it was all about creating the relationship. I don't know that will happen for you, that's just how it happened for me. And I think that's normal when you're getting to know somebody, right? You're going to get certain, well, I'm gonna see you when you're laughing or crying or joking or having, you're gonna see different aspects of the collective. I think of them as the collective. And they just would switch it up. Just when I was getting, oh, they're funny this month, and then it would switch to something else. And now it's a full-bodied relationship that I have with them. And I like that. It's enjoyable. It threw me when I started having dead people come through that were not related to the collective, and that can happen. And when that happens, the collective will pull back and allow the message from the spirit to come through, and then they'll come back in. But we go through that.
I wouldn't think that would happen. Because, you're in the hollow books, or my version.
Well,
You're in the closet there.
You're not really though. You've opened the prayer, and then you set up this bubble where you're in the collective and you're in this bubble with your client, or you're in the bubble with yourself and the collective. And you never know who's going to come in with a message for you. And it happened kind of regularly for me, and I kind of just ignored it because I never had wanted to really go into mediumship. When I gave a reading to somebody and I heard somebody come through with an Irish accent, it threw me a little bit. And she said, "Oh yeah, that's my grandmother. She comes to all my readings." Great.
How cute.
I'm so glad. She's quite the character. So remember that
cool.
the work that you do, so let me back up a second and say, I think what's important is that
Excuse
you
me.
establish a relationship for yourself in the records, for yourself. And we talk about that first and foremost. And then we get into exchanging readings, and that's where you get to discern the difference as to what it feels like to not just read her and her and her, but how different the energy is for each person. And let me be really clear. It is not about information, it is about energy. The energy comes through first, it is followed by the information. We tend to get stuck and kind of connected to wanting to have a result for whoever we're reading for. I mean, after all, that's what they're coming for, right? They need answers. And so we want to give them information, and yet just opening up their records and allowing each of the participant, the practitioner, and the client to sit in that space can be enough. It's kind of amazing, really. So would it be okay with you if I told you a little bit about the class? I'm actually teaching this a little bit more than I was before, so I've got an upcoming class on April, God, whatever I gave to you, 6th or 7th?
6, 7.
And we really work through the whole first part of the book. And the whole first part of the book is the structure of the prayer, what it means, how to use it, when to use it, when not to use it, who you read for, who you don't read for. Again, my best practices with that, which honestly is in some ways the most valuable part of the class. I'm not kidding. So it's sending you out with tools. We talk about reading plants, pets, animals, just what I said, buildings, anything that's in public domain. And we do a lot of exercises, so you get a lot of readings, because that's the whole goal. I want you to feel comfortable in your own records and what it feels like to be in somebody else's. It's 2 days. It's fun. Bring questions, because you get to have readings.
Should you read the whole book before you get there? So that you're ready?
That's a personal choice, but I will tell you that the second part of the book, I'm having a hot flash. Can we just cut that out of the tape?
I'll see what I can do.
The second part of the class, I'm gonna tell you in my viewpoint is the best part, the advanced training, because it takes you into all the levels that you wanna get into in a reading. It's not just, it's basic when we do the beginning, that's what it's supposed to be, okay? And then we go deeper, into deeper levels, what to look for, what to understand, and we do exercises for past lives, ancestral ties, and then we go into the zone of choice so that you can understand why you came into this particular lifetime, which is just way cool. And that's the second half. And I'm not gonna tell you not to read it. I read this book over and over and over again, front to back, and yet focus on the first part, right? Get your experience and your...
I mean, why would you stop if you're enjoying it?
It's a lot of information in the second half. It is, and it's better put to use in an experiential setting where you get to do exercises and really understand the deeper level that we go into.
By second half, do you mean on April 7th or a whole nother class the second half?
It's a whole other class. So
Oh,
the
this
beginning
just begins-
class is April 6th and 7th. The advanced
Oh.
class is actually the following week.
No.
It's 13th and the 14th.
Do you have a flyer on what you cover there?
I do. Let's see if it's right. I only brought a few, but I will tell you that all of this information is on my website.
Here, I'll give it,
Oh, thank you. I don't think I can get up.
It's probably the same link minus beginning, it'd be advanced maybe after that.
So on my,
Anybody else want one?
on my website, there is a tab that says trainings and workshops. And when you click on that, if there's a drop down for beginning, advanced, and healing through the Akashic records.
Thank you.
So,
Oh, you want,
oh,
okay.
one last thing, and then we can just mix it up and open it up for more questions. There's an early bird price.
There's one right here.
There's an early bird investment. If you register for the beginning class, I wanna say by the 16th.
30th. You said
30th.
the flyer says it's 30th.
You got 3:30 on here.
Good God. I
For the
probably
beginning.
changed it on my site. That would be a good thing. Let me do this. Let me go to my website and make sure. That's probably right. And if you want to register tonight, I can do that. That's super easy.
We get a discount for registering tonight?
You get the early bird. Because it's pretty affordable now on the early bird. Okay.
But you don't know what the early bird price is
It's $2.95.
for both, or for
No,
one?
for one. Okay, checking, one moment, please. Okay. The early bird price, the early bird investment is good until March 30th. Woohoo! I'll tell you what I'll do. Here's my gift. If you register tonight, I will send you the book. That is your gift.
You have a bunch of them on hand?
I don't. I will order it and send it to you.
Where do you order it from?
Does it matter?
Well,
It's
if
a
it's such a
gift.
good book.
It's a gift.
I know, but if it's such a good book, I wanna know more about it.
Yeah, no, I order from Amazon. But that would be my gift to this class. I don't do that for anybody else. Just because you're so special. So what other questions do you have? We have a few minutes and then we can. Yes, Leah.
So have you ever had somebody attend your class or attend class and not really be successful?
Yes and no. So remember what I said about it's a relationship?